wake up with the sun and struggle through the day. In every passing moment, watch a lifetime slip away and never wonder why.
Before I go anywhere with this, please go to the YouTube channel right now. Please go to the YouTube channel and go subscribe. We've got all these followers on Instagram. It's been the best thing ever. You guys are amazing. But please go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. And share videos on YouTube. Send those YouTube videos to people. And go get them to subscribe. We've got an amazing Instagram following now. The community is growing. The fire rises. We just got to get more people on the YouTube. Instagram's censoring the crap out of me, man. I don't know. It's weird. I didn't think that really happened. I didn't believe anybody when they said that happened, but Instagram is making it hard to do anything on here at this point. They choked out my followers for a few days too. I was getting like 1,000 followers a day, or 500, 400, 600 followers a day, and then I went to getting like 10 for like 4 or 5 days, and then all of a sudden the floodgates opened again. I've never seen that. And they don't let me save my Instagram live videos anymore, so you have to go to the YouTube if you want to watch them after we get done. So please do that. Please do that. The YouTube thing is going to be cool. And then once we get enough people on the YouTube, we're going to start doing not Instagram lives, but live videos on YouTube lives. So please do that. I'm going to go through, I'm kind of doing this impromptu. What's up, House? Lori Hugh House. I don't know what to call you because, I mean, it could be Lori, could be Hugh, could be House. Could be Hugh Laurie. I don't know. I didn't really think I was going to have time to do this feed, so I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about. But I've got plenty of ideas. Let's see. We can talk about artists and shows and movies. Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about archetypes. We got Friend of Man in the building. He'll support me on this. If we want to talk about archetypes, we'll talk about archetypes in modern media. In the conscious community, it's a sin to drink alcohol. I've found that out. People are really judgmental. Guys, we're conscious. Don't be judgmental. I know it's not I know alcohol is poisonous and toxic and everything else, but you know, everybody has their own dharma, their own set of rules to live by, their own progress, their own process, their own sort of journey they have to go on. You know, I don't overindulge in alcohol the way I used to. Don't be mad. Yeah. I get more hate for the weirdest things. You know, for our community being the conscious community and being the community that's supposed to be the most full of love, light, understanding, and tolerance and all that, it's interesting that like there's still like this vestigial leftover aspect of us that is you know, left over from pre-consciousness time. And people can be pretty judgmental. I get, you know, it's crazy. It's so surreal to get hate on a post that you make about astronomy. Like you make I'm not really a drinker either, you know. I used to drink heavily, you know, and then I woke up and started using cannabis occasionally and psychedelics occasionally, and I don't feel the need to drink as much really, you know. But I still will have a beer every once in a while. And, you know, there is the reality of having a whole family of people that like to get together socially and have a beer or whatever. So it doesn't bother me to do that, but I don't get ripped the way that I used to. So, yeah. I forgot what I was saying before I got off on that. Oh, Sungaze is here. Real quick, I'll plug my friends. If you guys don't follow Sungaze has just beautiful, uplifting, a lot of naturalistic type posts and stuff like that, but also other things too. Sort of philosophical, but a lot of beautiful, earthy stuff. Back when I used to do a much bigger auto tag, I had like a bunch of accounts that I would auto tag on every thing. I don't do that anymore because I used to get a couple of people warned me that you can get banned for doing that, so I don't do it with everybody anymore. I just do it with my really close friends. But Sungaze has a beautiful account that was very inspirational to me, and I used to excuse me, I used to auto tag Sungaze and like midnight_33, I think, or I think Midnight Sun 33. I can't remember everybody, but there was about 20 some odd, like 20 people, I think, or 15 to 20 people that I would auto tag, because like Kodiak 89 and I don't remember, man. A bunch of people, but people that, like, if you visited my page and enjoyed my page, I figure you'll probably enjoy these people too. And these were the people that inspired me the most when I first started this account. And so now I just keep like my very closest friends on there. And I'm kind of regretting that. Sungaze, do you mind if I auto tag you? Like if I put you on all my posts on the at thing? Because I think people should see your page. I think that you've got a lot of uplifting, naturalistic things. I'm going to pull up Sungage's Instagram here. Everybody go subscribe to the YouTube. It's in my bio. The link is in my bio. If you have not subscribed, please go do. Okay, I'm going to look at Sungaze's page real fast. Just show it, like, yeah. So the most recent post on Sungaze's Instagram page, it says, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." That's just beautiful. I'm going to repost that. I'm going to steal that. That's just uplifting and beautiful. So you're getting added back to the auto tag thing. Reb Swirl. I am wonderful, man. I'm beautiful. I got to spend the day with my family. Had kind of a weird weekend. But I'm having a great day. Right Hand Path is another one. Right Hand Path used to be on my auto tags too. I used to have Right Hand Path on my auto tags, but I that's another one that I took off because I was afraid that I would get banned or something. He only follows one person. Right Hand Path only follows one person. But that was one of my short list of people. Of all the 800 people I follow on Instagram, I had about 15 or 20 that were on my auto tags, and I put them on every single post. Just copy paste over from my notes in my phone. Right Hand Path is beautiful too. But Sungaze joins my lives every once in a while, which I really appreciate the support there. Sungaze also said, we are the gods of this world. We can create heaven on earth. But since most believe in a future heaven, we created hell instead. And that's so true. That's, oh God. I don't know. I can't steal. I got to be careful and not just go through and like just steal all of like the last 5 posts from a single account. You know, Sungaze kind of makes you want to do that sometimes. Friend of Man does that. Project Knowledge does that. But that's a good one. We are gods of this world. We can create heaven on earth. But since most of us believe in a future heaven, we created hell instead. That's so true. If you believe that once you die, you're going to get to heaven, then what's the point in creating heaven here? You know, the cool thing about the conscious community is that most of us tend to believe that we can create heaven here. We can create a beautiful world here. And so we try to do that. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. Okay. All right, guys. So we're going to roll into this. And if you missed this, please go to the YouTube channel. It's in my bio. Please go to the YouTube channel. It's in my bio. Please go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. The more people we get over there, the more we can do YouTube lives instead of Instagram lives, and then I have a lot better ability to type to you, talk to you, you know, just and record it and save it and all that stuff as well. Sungaze, you gave me a shout out, man. Guys, listen. This is so important for me to say. Sungaze, Friend of Man, Project Knowledge, Dat Unruly Slave, several people. When I started this thing, I got into this podcast because I wanted to change the world. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people be happier, find happier stations in life, pursue the things that they enjoyed more, to be more aware of their own emotions and their own mentality, and to just live in a way that was more rewarding. And so the series that I've been working on here recently is also the name of one of the books I'm working on, called Living Excited. And it's the idea that we don't have to wake up and have this sort of humdrum attitude about life. And that, in fact, we really should have the opposite outlook, because regardless of the situation we're in, if the sound of this message is falling on your ears, you can't have it as bad as some people do. And if you can't have it as bad as some people do, that means you have a whole lot to be thankful for. So we need to focus more on the things that we have and less on the things that we don't. But when I first started this account, Sungaze was one of the very first people that I saw that really inspired me with just beauty and putting a lot of awesome, beautiful, vibrant, brilliant things that were full of light. And so when I decided to really put a lot of effort into the Instagram, Sun Gaze was one of the most important accounts that I found. Friend of Man was one of my most inspirational, one of my biggest inspirations early on, and remains to be so to this day. Who, you know, we've become friends. And find people on Instagram that you enjoy, you know. Find people on Instagram that lift you up. Find people in the real world that lift you up. Find people all around you, and only surround yourselves with an environment of uplifting and positive vibrance. That's really what it's about, you know. Don't be surrounded with negative people. They have a problem for every solution. Sun Gaze is not one of those people. Friend of Man is not one of those people. If anybody on my auto tags at this point, if you see somebody on my auto tags, Wolf Bullman, he's a big crazy Viking guy. He lives in Norway. He gave me a lot of support early on. Third Eye Navigator is an awesome guy. He's here in the States, and just a lot of good people, man. Build a community of people. That's what we're doing here. Build a community of people that lift you up and that are positive people. That's what we're here to do. Okay. That beer is amazing. We had a fish fry at my parents' today. People ask me if I'm vegan. I'm headed that way. I really am. But part of what we're going to talk about, maybe tonight, but probably not tonight as much, probably more this week at some point, is the fact that everybody has their own sort of, like I said earlier, everybody has their own sort of rules that they need to live through or live by, in their own process they have to go through. And so, like for me, I've reached an understanding, you know, a long time ago that like organic food was the only way to go. And so for the last 8 or 9 years, I've only tried to eat organic food as much as possible. But just with my lifestyle and working and traveling a lot, sometimes it's not always the easiest thing to do. So historically, you know, go to a restaurant, it's kind of hard to eat just organic. But you go to nice restaurants, you can usually find that. But then the last year, I gave up cow's milk a year ago. I've always been a big milk drinker, and I stopped drinking cow's milk about a year ago. I love almond milk, but you know, you talk to some people, and almond milk's got all kinds of problems too. But then now Ashley's learning to cook vegan stuff. So we've had vegan enchiladas, we've had vegan food the last few days, and largely we eat a lot of, you know, mainly vegan and vegetarian stuff. But I come from a house where we eat a lot of steak too. So we've, in the last 6 months, I've probably had 4 steaks, you know. But I'm getting to the point where red meat and chicken both just make me sick to eat them, you know. But I think that we have to get to a point. This is why I say everybody has their own dharma, everybody has their own processes, because, you know, sometimes you get to a point where you just can't eat something because it just grosses you out. Your body, your brain just won't let you eat it anymore. And everybody needs to go through that. So I think as part of the conscious community, I think we all need to make it a point not to judge people or to be too harsh on people who are trying to go through a transformation in their lives. We need to be more supportive and start to understand that everyone goes through this transformation differently. And not everybody feels convicted to stop eating eggs at the same time they stop drinking cow's milk, you know, or to stop eating chicken as soon as they stop eating red meat. I mean, it's a process, you know. There are a lot of different variables here. So we should do a better job of that. Go at your own pace, says K. Marie Portillo. I agree. Go at your own pace. Yeah, I mean, I've tried to go vegan and vegetarian for years, and like I just did, until you reach the understanding of the reality of things and it hits you at a deep level, it's kind of hard to just make the decision to start making your life more difficult by like cooking all this crazy stuff that nobody likes or that seems foreign to everybody. But once you reach the understanding of like what goes into slaughtering a cow. You know what really did it for me with the red meat was watching that video I posted a while back, and you guys might have seen it on my page or somewhere else, when there was like that baby calf in the back of a truck, like the bed of a truck, with a dog, and it was like the dog was like licking the baby cow on his face, and it was so cute, and like the cow turned and started nibbling on the dog's ear, and you realize that this is basically the same two animals. And I'm a dog guy. I've got this dumb dog in my floor right now, stinking up the whole room because he's all wet. When I saw that video, it just had an impact on me, and so eating red meat just doesn't sit well with me anymore, you know. And then I saw a video the other day about menstruation, you know, about how every female menstruates, or how females menstruate once a month, and chickens do too, and it's called an egg, you know. And I was like, damn, I'm eating chicken menstruation. You know, that's that's a hard thing to deal with. I eat a lot of eggs, you know. But I grew up on a farm, you know. My parents still have a farm, and I'm hoping to have a farm again soon in the next few months, and a ranch, you know, with lots of animals. And you go out and you take care of your chickens and your animals and your goats and your cows and your llamas, your donkeys and all that stuff, and you love on them. They're part of the family. But like getting the chicken eggs doesn't ever strike you as being bad. But now thinking about eating chicken menstruation seems a little yucky, you know. Sorry, plant-based says you can look at the other end of the spectrum, how much energy is used to turn food into energy. And that's important to understand too. What I've found is that I enjoy salads, man. I really do, oddly enough. I love a salad with with some avocado on it, and a bunch of just, with spinach and kale and lettuce and carrots. I was microdosing the other night and ate a salad that had some cilantro and some carrots in it, dude. And I started eating this stuff, and it was like this whole epic saga going on in my mouth. And it was like the carrots and the cilantro were just taking over everything. And it was just this beautiful, amazing combination of flavors and nutrients that was getting, it went straight to my third eye. And we keep carrot juice in the fridge and a bunch of other raw juices and stuff like that. I went in there and started drinking carrot juice and eating cilantro. It was probably quite a sight to see. But, eating right makes a big difference, man. And when I eat salads and stuff, I feel a lot better than I do when I eat any kind of meat. And so first we dialed back the red meat a lot, and then we dialed back even the chicken and stuff a lot. And I grew up hunting, and, killing birds was never as much of a problem for me as killing other animals, But... again, everybody has their own conviction. So what I'm going to now is I'm about to buy a compound bow and get back into bow hunting. I used to do that when I was younger. And I'm going to try to kill like one elk or something a year. That sits well with my soul just fine. I don't relish in the idea of taking the life of another mammal, but I've never wanted to kill a deer. I've never wanted to kill an elk with a gun, waiting on it to go get its breakfast at a deer stand or something. But I think that the feeling, from providing a year worth of meat in one animal and then growing all of our produce and all of our meals for the rest of the year, 90% of our own food we would grow and all that, that sits fine with me. People may judge me for that, and that, it's none of my business what other people think. JC suggested that I do a better job with the backdrop here. So I got a new situation going on back behind me. This astronaut here, his name is Terrence. You guys can figure that out. And this is a picture frame that says, "Take a hike," and that's me and Ashley and Braden and Jet. In Sedona, we went hiking up in Sedona, and then we've got the dinner is coming. I don't know if you can see the wolf, the Game of Thrones cutting board, the dinner is coming thing. And then there's some castle or something from England, I think, like that, back behind me. Some Scottish castle or something, I assume. Okay, that's it. Go to the YouTube. We're gonna go. We're gonna talk about archetypes tonight. But before we do that, just one last time, please go to the YouTube channel. Please go subscribe, and let's build that follower base too. The link is in my bio here on Instagram. I wanted to talk about archetypes because have you guys ever heard of Jordan Peterson? Jordan Peterson, he's a psychologist from the University of Toronto. Well, I loved you, Bohana Bokika 87. I love you. Thank you very much. There's Wolf Bullman. There's the crazy Viking I was telling you about. He dives and swims in Wolf. His name is Kim. He dives in the Arctic Ocean. He lives up above the Arctic Circle. If you guys want to follow Wolf Bullman, he takes pictures of the northern lights off his back porch and stuff, and he lives just a little distance away from the shores of whatever ocean is up in the north of Norway or whatever. And he dives in there with a damn wetsuit on and swims around, and then goes down to Africa and runs around with lions and shit. So follow him if you want positive stuff. He's full of love, man. So tonight we're talking about archetypes. All right, guys. Just so you know, I'm going to do my best to not pay attention to the Instagram. Well, okay, yeah, this is valid enough. Will I be talking about natural medicine soon? Yes, I'll be talking about natural medicine soon. That is high up my list to start talking about. So don't let me forget. Don't feel like you're bothering me. Remind me about that. In the next week or two, I'm going to start getting into natural medicine a lot more. I've been really stuck on ancient civilizations a lot lately because everybody loves to talk about ancient civilizations. Oh no, my other camera went off. Hold on. Let's see. All right, I think we're back on the other camera. The other camera's weird. It cuts me off every so often. But yeah, we're gonna get into natural remedies and medicine and stuff soon. Ancient civilizations has been the big hotness here recently. I love you, Wolf, eternally as well. You flaming wolf alien. Hey guys, my boo's in here. You guys go follow ash.senshin. That's my queen bee right there. Go follow her. She's a wonderful human being. Oh, and there's JC. You guys got to follow JC. He's my producer. He's sick right now. He's fighting the chemtrails. JC's fighting the chemtrails. They've got him down for like 3 days. He's been running like a 103 fever. Dying of the flu. Make sure you go follow JC. He cooks all kinds of amazing stuff. I'm trying to, get him fully motivated and inspired to go do what he does best, which is to talk to people and cook amazing tasting food and entertain people in the process. So, all right. I'm not going to watch the questions a lot. So, let's just be aware of that. It's not because I don't love you guys, because I totally do. But I'm gonna run through this, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. We'll try to keep it relevant to the topic of the day, if you can. If you can't, then email me or DM me the questions that you have on Instagram, and I will address them. I've been trying to address people's questions. I don't always point it out when I do, but I try to point them out when I'm addressing someone's questions from one of the live feeds that I miss. So just DM it to me, and I'll try to get to it as best I can. But today I wanted to talk about archetypes. Archetypes. This is super important to me because I could get into religions a lot about, when we're talking about archetypes, I could really get into religions, but I'd like to keep it sort of focused on mythology. If you can think about mythology as being separate from religion, because mythology is more a matter of storytelling, right? Religion is a system of rituals and practices and traditions and things that you physically sort of do. Mythology is something that you can just read about. Something stories is storytelling. And what you're doing with storytelling is you are using archetypes, which is to say a set of characteristics that a person can relate with to tell a story. And what I've realized, I mentioned Jordan Peterson earlier, and Jordan Peterson is a psychologist from the University of Toronto, and he kind of caught some heat and started gaining some traction on the public stage across the U.S. And all right, K. Marie just subscribed, excited to see the content. Thank you so much. I'm excited to get it to you. So Jordan Peterson caught some heat a couple years ago, maybe 18 months ago or so, at the University of Toronto. He's a professor, and I won't go into what he caught heat about, but it was just politically incorrect. He's just being politically incorrect, which is fine by me. Being politically correct is like literally the last thing on my priority list, right? It's the least important thing possible because it's just a cultural regulation. It's not an ethical or an innate moral obligation to be politically correct. And so anyway, but what Jordan Peterson taught me about, and he had just as much hand in waking me up as anyone else ever has. But what Jordan Peterson taught me about was that there's truth in mythology. There's truth in storytelling. So growing up, I was always big on mythology. I did a report on Greek mythology and Alexander the Great and a bunch of other stuff when I was like in 5th grade or something. But I was always fascinated from the time I was 5 or 6 years old with Greek and Roman mythology, Native American mythology, especially Norse mythology. I named my dog Thor after all. How's that's Thor. So that is, that's where I'm at with mythology. It's always been something I enjoy. But Jordan Peterson helped me to take it to another level of understanding and getting that there's a reason why mythology exists. What I realized over time, thanks to my kids and my own analysis of the way that media works and the way that TV shows and Hollywood and all that stuff works is that Shay, you asshole. So a friend of mine would post and try to distract me in the middle of a thought here and say that he found some interesting info on Lemuria because he knows that I'm obsessed with Lemuria. And here I am trying to talk about mythology, and he wants to distract me with something that I find the most interesting of anything out there. You're the worst friend ever. Friend of man, not friend of Adam. All right, I'm moving on, but tell me about it later. Well, we'll do it in the Q&A if somebody wants to know about it. I'm sure they do. But Jordan Peterson, so, it's mythology. Oh, wow. Okay. We'll get into that later. Tell me more about it. But realizing that modern day mythology is, or modern day media, modern day movies and TV shows and books, that it is mythology. These are archetypes that we understand. My 7-year-old reads the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, and I've seen some of the shows and read some of the books with him. And the fact is that we write stories so that they resonate with someone. You know, as a writer, as a songwriter, and somebody who's looked into writing books and started doing enough of that myself, it wasn't until I started to try to do it myself that I realized that that's why we write. That's why we create art, is because we want it to resonate with people. We want to express what's going on inside. And if you've ever seen a really bad movie, you know that they do exist. But the reason why a bad movie is bad is because it doesn't resonate with you. There's something about it that doesn't work. So this comes from one of three things. One is not so relevant to the point, but that's bad acting. Like, you know, if you don't like a movie, if you find a bad movie and you don't enjoy it, you think it's a crappy movie, it could be bad acting. That's not really relevant to the point. The other relevance is, or the other reason why you might not like a movie, what makes a shitty movie, is bad writing. But what is bad writing really? And that's what I'm interested in. Bad writing is either a bad storyline that lacks balance, or it's unrealistic archetypes. That's what makes a bad movie or a good movie. If a movie is good, then you have balance. And what that means is, you know, I always use Game of Thrones as an example because dude that wrote it, God, I can't believe I don't remember his name right now. Anyway, you know, he obviously understands the geometry of mythology, the geometry of storytelling, the balance of truth, and how to present truth and balance in a relatable way. And so whenever you have something, George R.R. Martin, yeah, I knew it was something like J.R.R. Tolkien, but it was George R.R. Martin. But if you have something bad happen to a person, imagine a graph. If you have something bad happen to a character that you like, right? At some point in the story, that person needs a vindication. So if you have, you know, your x-axis here, and you have something negative that happens to this person, you want to see something positive happen to that person. So if it's a -1, like their dog gets shot, or maybe that's a -2, then you want to see a +2. You want to see some sort of redemption come out of that later on. And so bad storytelling is going to come from, first of all, imbalance in the storyline, which means that you have a lack of redemption for wrongs that were done to people, or you have a lack of justice for people who did things wrong. And so this kind of came out to me the other night if you guys have not seen the movie Watchmen, that's I think a DC universe story, comic story. It may be one of the most perfect representations of archetypes that I've ever seen from the comic book world. It's just amazing. You have like this one dude that's he's a scientist, so he's very, very smart, and he gets turned into this essentially an all-knowing, all-powerful being that can like transport nuclear reactors from New York to the South Pole with a blink of an eye. He can replicate himself 50 times, and everybody's working on, you know, nuclear fission experiments and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. He can take apart you know, like a Panzer tank bolt by bolt with a thought in an instant, and then reassemble it and crumple it up. This is an archetype of a human being. This is the all-knowing, all-powerful human being we'd all like to be. You got another guy in there, Rorschach, that is troubled and haunted by his own demons of his past. right? Which is part of most of us can relate or resonate with some part of that. He's had horrible things happen to him as a young kid. And he's had horrible things happen to him as an adult. He's seen kids get murdered. He's seen all kinds of terrible stuff. And so Rorschach is damaged goods, but he is good to his core with a really rough exterior, right? You see him, he's brutal, he's tough, he's all this stuff, but he is good to his very core, to the point that he's willing to die to do what is right. And then by the end of the movie, spoiler alert, skip ahead or plug your ears for 20 seconds. You were warned. It's the hero's journey. Yeah, Shay is, friend of man. The hero's journey. You're exactly right. But by the end of the movie, what you end up with is, and this is when I realized that a bad movie comes out of imbalance, is that when Ashley and I were watching this, she'd never seen it, and by the end of it, there's a dude that does something kind of reprehensible, kind of really, really horrible and inhumane, but he did it for the greater good. But Ashley really struggled with the fact that he was going to get off scot-free for doing this thing, even though it worked in favor of the greater good. She really wanted to see this guy pay for it. By the end of the movie, the guy paid for it in the very last few moments of the movie. But that's when I realized that that's what we need. Is in a good movie, there has to be balance between good and evil, between light and dark, between justice for the wicked and redemption for the righteous, right? And that led me to the Parks and Recreation. Have you guys ever seen Parks and Recreation? On, I don't know, I watch it on Netflix. If you've never seen it, then I don't know what to tell you. But Parks and Recreation is probably the best show to demonstrate archetypes. Just like Watchmen is great in terms of movies. It's a little bit darker and grittier. But Parks and Rec is great because what you'll see is what happens when a person of a certain type, a person who exhibits certain character traits and certain personality flaws or personality virtues, when they do something happens. And they exhibit truth pretty well, right? Because again, we know that when you see a good movie, the storyline is realistic and relatable, and the archetypes are relatable and realistic too. And I hate to jump around so much, but just to give another example, I saw a movie the other day, Valerian, where this one guy does a bunch of good things the whole movie, and he's really hardcore, and he's seen a lot of bad things happen. He's a pretty reasonable dude. And then at the end of the movie, he does something that was kind of dumb. It wasn't very realistic. It wasn't very relatable. And he did something. He trusted somebody he shouldn't have trusted, if you know how that character type works. And it wasn't a bad movie. It was a great movie. But that's just one example of how a particular character can be written in a way that's not realistic, and he doesn't act in a plausible way. And so what Parks and Rec does very well. The other day I was watching with my kids. They love to watch that show. And Jerry in that show is like this kind of big fat goofy dude, like late middle-aged dude. But he's got like the hottest wife ever, and like these 3 beautiful daughters, and this amazing home life and all this stuff. But everybody picks on him. He doesn't have a whole lot of spectacular talents that are like in the forefront as far as that apply to his job, working in the Parks and Recreation department. And so everybody makes fun of him. Everybody gives him a hard time. And like, damn it, Jerry is like, it's like You Killed Kenny on South Park. It's like constantly a thing. But everybody's confused on the show how Jerry got the wife that he got, and why is she so beautiful? Why is he this big, dumpy, goofy guy, and no one gets it? And I was trying to explain this to my kids, how the archetypes here are trying to tell a story. Is that Jerry in the show Parks and Rec, he may be a big goofy guy at work, and he may not be the best looking guy. He may not be the most fit, but one thing is that he's always positive. Jerry's always positive at work in this show. No matter who makes fun of him or who does what, he just smiles and laughs, and he's like, all right, guys, it's all in good fun, But he chooses to make the best of every situation that he can. He chooses not to take offense to what people say. And he doesn't make himself a doormat so much as he genuinely just isn't bothered by it. And then why is he not bothered by it? He's not bothered by it because he goes home to a beautiful, beautiful, loving wife and beautiful, healthy daughters, and he has this amazing life at home. Also, come to find out, Jerry is an amazing painter, and he's an amazing pianist, and he has some other skills I don't remember. But this is an archetype of the ideal person you want to be if, right? Jerry Gergich is the ideal character you want to be if. And what is the if? I had this conversation the other day with a philosophy student about should we tell people what they should do? That was kind of his question to me. Should rich people give their money to poor people? I think was his question. But my response was we shouldn't tell people that they should do anything. Their should is always associated with an if, and the idea here is that maybe you shouldn't live like Jerry from Parks and Rec, but you should if. Right? Associate that should with an if. You should act like Jerry and live your life in that way if you want to have a happy personal life. So you may go to your office job, and you may not have all the skills in the world at your office job, and you may not be the most popular guy there. You may get picked on. But if you choose to be positive about everything that you deal with, and if you choose to overlook the flaws in other people and try to be supportive and be a positive person in general, if you forgive people for things that they might do or say that cross you a little bit. And if you live your life in that way, you're likely to be the kind of person who goes home to the happiest personal life imaginable. And along the way, the truth is that you may also have some other abilities that go unrecognized by people. And that is that's the truth of Jerry Gergich's character from Parks and Rec that's so beautiful, is that if you want to be like that guy, on the surface, you wouldn't think you want to be him because, for the first couple seasons, all you see is that he's the goofy, chubby guy that always gets made fun of. But a couple seasons in, you see, but because he's always positive, because he's a loving person, because he's intelligent, and he goes home and learns to play piano and do art and everything else, he's got this beautiful, beautiful wife, beautiful family, and all this stuff. Ron Swanson and the other Ron in Parks and Rec. Two more people. Ron Swanson, very, very simplistic Scotch drinking, Lagavulin Scotch fan, libertarian, believes in small government, thinks the government is robbing everyone when they take taxes, which happens to be the way that I feel. Not a very spiritual guy, very much into working with his hands, big into hunting, lives off of steak and potatoes. He doesn't eat vegetables at all because he doesn't eat the food that his food eats, he says. This is an archetype of a person, and a lot of people may know a Ron Swanson, right? My dad's a Ron Swanson. He lives off steak. He works with his hands. He's a woodworker. He's building all kinds of stuff out of cedar. At any given time, you come by my dad's house, he's in his shop working on some kind of cedar wood project. And he makes a better steak than anybody, and brisket and all kinds of meat, and he has more guns than anybody I know. So this is obviously an archetype of a human being. And so what you see in mythology and what you see typologically when you look at a Parks and Recreation or a Watchmen is what happens when these different character traits interact. What happens when you have a Ron Swanson and a Leslie Knope? Again, you have to see Parks and Recreation to know what I'm talking about there. But whenever you have these different archetypes interacting with each other, or you have particular sets of traits interacting with each other, what happens? And that's what truth is. Right, we're really wrapped up a lot of times in talking about what we should do. And I think the bigger question is, if we do something, what will happen, right? A should and an if. Well, you should do this if you want that, right? Should a rich person give all their money to poor people? Maybe, right? But there's always an if attached to that should. And when you make considerations about decisions in your life, you should always consider, what is the if attached to the should? Should I do this? Well, I should do this if I want this outcome, right? So if you say that I should give my money, if I'm rich, I should give my money to poor people. Maybe I should. But maybe I give, if I have $10 million to give, maybe I give that $10 million, and then I have $10 million that I've given away to the poor people. But if, so I should give $10 million away to charities if I want charities to have $10 million cash in their hands, right? There's a should and an if. But I should save my money and reinvest it into my companies and do other things with it and build it up to $100 million so that in 20 years I can have $90 million to give away to charities. I should save my money and reinvest it if I want to have 90 million instead of 10. And this is a big thing that happens when you are participating in philosophical or political or religious or cultural or psychological or any kind of discourse with anyone. We're always like, no, you should do this. I mean, this is really the fervency that different political parties and different philosophical groups and religious groups are participating in. This is like, you should do this. This is the right way to do it. Well, this is Sam Harris, UCLA philosopher and neuroscientist, talks about the moral landscape, right? Well, it's not always a yes and no. It very rarely is a yes and no question of what you should do in your life. But if you do this, then you will have this. And that's the key, is trying to do the right thing to make sure that you get the right result. And mythologies, I find, are probably the best way to teach that. Probably the best way that you can go about teaching someone what will happen whenever an archetype of one kind interacts with an archetype of another. You can't do it in a mathematical formula in a way that a 5-year-old can understand, or a 10-year-old, or most 30-year-olds. So if you want to teach somebody how to act, if you want to teach your kids or an entire civilization of people how to act, then the media is a good way to do that. To do that through storytelling is the best way to do that. To do that through art and song, but especially the mythology of storytelling, or the storytelling of mythology, is how you would best do that. And I could tie this into ancient civilizations, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But if you guys want to remind me later, we can. But this is obviously why I believe that ancient civilizations had no written language in a lot of cases, is because you can't write this stuff down and do it any justice. You can tell a story. My kids have never written down the script to the Avengers movies or any Marvel movie or any superhero movie, but they can tell you, like, shot by shot, screen by screen, what goes on in any Avengers movie or any Marvel movie. And I think that's why mythology is so important, and it's probably why we didn't have any written language in a lot of cultures back in the day, is that the more that you focus on mythology and rely on mythology for your, to teach lessons to, especially to your young people, but really for everybody to live by, the less you need a lot of other written stuff. So I guess the bottom line is, what I would encourage you guys to do is, the next time you watch a movie, the next time you watch a TV show, stop looking at characters as these, sort of fictional characters or whatever. Look at them as true archetypes of humanity, and see if you know anybody that acts in a certain way, or that acts in the same way that a certain character does, right? Maybe you relate with, and again, another thing about Parks and Recreation is, I think if anybody watches that show, there's at least one or two or three characters that, like, everybody can relate with. They're like, I'm part Tom and part Donna and part, whatever. And then you see, like, the balance of, like, certain characters are not that outstanding, but they're sort of the balancing point, like the fulcrum that holds the whole thing together. So it's really interesting. I think you guys ought to look at that. That's really what I wanted to do. JC and I are gonna do some movie reviews, TV show reviews, and stuff like that about typologies and mythology and archetypes, because understanding this and then teaching this stuff to your kids, and even understanding it yourself, and then analyzing it and trying to live your life in accordance with the truths that these mythologies sort of reveal, is really a cool way to go through life. And then you can start to develop an appreciation for the pure truths of religion, and start to identify where the bullshit obviously came in. And then you can help religious people start to identify that stuff too. And I've had this happen with some people who were struggling with religion, and they knew that it was bullshit. They knew there was stuff in there that didn't make sense. They knew we shouldn't throw gay people off roofs or ban women from coming into, a temple or a church service once a month or whatever. They knew that it didn't make sense for a loving God to tell a man to kill his own son. Like, this stuff didn't make sense. But if you don't understand typologies, if you don't understand mythology and archetypes, then you better hope that you're really smart, really good at living life without any sort of template, and that you're never going to encounter someone who's any different than you. But as long as we live in a world where people aren't perfect at living their lives, and most of us are not, and we don't really have a great guide system or a great template to live by, then we need to understand that mythology continues to be generated today, continues to be created and live on. The stories that have been told for thousands of years throughout the human story are still being told today in archetypes. And my kids can identify it because I pointed it out to them. And kids can pick it up so much quicker than most adults. If you just teach your kids, teach yourself, teach your younger siblings, teach people in general that that really what you can gain from these mythologies, these modern mythologies and movies and stories and books, is understanding archetypes and understanding what happens when they collide. That's that on archetypes. That's it for the night. Thanks for listening. We'll do a Q&A. If you guys want to get into anything around mythologies or archetypes or any of that stuff, go ahead. If not, namaste, Brooklyn. We'll get into that. We'll do Q&A now. All right, let's see. A Hero of 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell. I think that book is a good book on archetypes. I agree with you. Awesome. I appreciate that, man. I've not read that. If you would DM that to me, well, you know what? Hold on. I'll type it in. Any Q&A for anybody? Hero of 1,000 Faces. I would recommend Jordan Peterson greatly, by Joseph Campbell. Okay, so Alfred wants to know, where would I place myself politically? So I think that Jordan Peterson. I was talking about him earlier. I want to say this because it kind of makes me happy to say. I've always said Sam Harris is my left brain. Sam Harris, UCLA neuroscientist, philosopher, intellectually like one of my heroes, top heroes. He's my left brain. Graham Hancock is my right brain. Much more spiritual, much more open-minded, much more... he's a very discerning dude, and he's a very serious academic dude, but a lot more open-minded and spiritual and open to love and light and that kind of thing. And Jordan Peterson is sort of my balance in between. Jordan Peterson is a dude that understands symbolism. That's what the right brain does. Right brain understands symbolism and love and imagination and spirit. Left brain understands calculations and math and science and evidence and empiricism, literalism, all that stuff. So Sam Harris is my left brain. Graham Hancock is my right brain. And Jordan Peterson is as close to my midbrain balance as I could find. So those three people I would recommend, but I would recommend them within those confines. Politically, I would say oh no, my battery went dead on my other camera, guys. That's a sad day. So the podcast, the recorded podcast stops here. Now that we know that. Politically, I economically, man, I'm pretty far right. Economically, I'm a business owner. I come from a family of business owners, and I've worked for people. I've been a cashier at Walmart. I've worked in the gym business, being a salesman and being a sales manager and a general manager, and moving my way up from there. I've worked on computers for a living. I've owned an IT company and a marketing company and a consulting agency, and I think it's helped me to realize that like economically, liberals just don't have it together. And there's a reason why. Like I did the research. Like 19% of business owners are liberals, and it's because. And I would argue that like even within those 19% of business owners that are liberals, they're only liberals because they adhere to and subscribe to and believe in and support liberal policies on the social side. Otherwise, you probably have like 5% of business owners that were liberals, right? And those 5 business owners wouldn't be very solid business owners, because once you've been in that position where like you know what it's like to be the grunt on the front lines doing the work, digging ditches, welding steel to other pieces of steel on tilt wall buildings, using spray machines to coat cardboard boxes and corrugated crates to ship them out, across the country, or manufacturing concrete surfacing with stamped and imprinted templates, or working on someone's computer that's bitching at you. Like, you got to do a lot of that stuff. And once you've done that, and then you move your way up to the point where you own businesses and you have employees that you care about, you realize that the whole liberal view on economics is fucking crazy. It's just non-existent. So economically, I'm very much a capitalist, and I think that capitalism works when you do it right. Socialism just doesn't. But we live in a place where conservatives, like, if to be a conservative, you've got to be in favor of, like, keeping people from experimenting with their own consciousness. You got to be, you've got to want to be the kind of person that tells people how to live their lives when it comes to doing things in their own home. That's crazy. Or trying to ban people from getting married. I mean, I'm a libertarian. If I had to put myself anywhere, I'm a libertarian. That's as close as I could come to it. I hate putting labels on it, but I don't know a lot of... I'm a Ron Paul guy, I think gay people should get married all they want, but I don't think that the government should have anything to do with marriage in the first place. You know what I mean? I think that people should be able to smoke pot and do whatever else they want to do. I think people should be able to do anything they want to do. They're not hurting anybody. I don't believe in victimless crimes. I don't think that a crime is a crime if it's victimless. And I think that the condition of our country in terms of where we're at with policing and the whole criminal system and the judicial system is so far out of whack that it's hard to even talk about it without getting into a whole deep conversation. That's where I'm at politically, if that makes any sense. People should be able to do whatever the hell they want to do. The government's way too big. It shouldn't be this big. Government has way too many responsibilities today. They shouldn't have that many responsibilities. Ron Paul said, I want to get rid of the IRS and the Fed, and I don't mean fiddling with the code. I mean, getting rid of them and replacing them with nothing. That's where I'm at. Alfred, take care, man. Thank you very much. So a friend of man says, what about the flood myth? Gosh, which one? I mean, there's just a billion, the Hopi, the Navajo, the Maya, the Egyptian, that more than anybody. We, what I'm digging into right now, what I actually made a note of earlier, Shay, was, I never looked much into, so since I was a little kid, I was reading about the Indian mounds. Hold on. I'm crazy curious to know if this camera has a battery cable somewhere that I could plug in. I don't know if it does or not. That's so sad. That's so sad. I don't know why it's out. Anyway, I used to read about the flood myths and stuff when I was little. And I haven't been as interested in the Indian mounds. But I think I'm about to dig back into that spreadsheet that I was making, that graph, that chronology of different flood myths and different global disasters, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes and stuff like that, where I've been sort of trying to aggregate all this data from all the civilizations of the last few thousand years, from the Chinese and the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, everybody, the monks and bishops and stuff of, like, the post Roman Empire era and stuff like that around Europe, African stories from the Dogon and the Zulu and all those guys too, and try to start correlating disasters in different areas with the rise and fall of different civilizations. So I've been trying to do that for a while, but I'm going to get back into the mound builders of the Ohio River Valley and stuff like that here in the States, because I think those guys, I just found out today that those guys, their civilization kind of just popped up and they started building mounds at exactly the same time that the Greeks did, which is crazy. So I'm going to start looking more into that. But the Younger Dryas myths, I think that's something that's pretty obvious to you and I, but for anybody who's not aware of all that, the Younger Dryas period was about a 1,200-year period at the end of the last ice age, where, excuse me, where the the Earth was getting nice and warm. It was warming up. And hold on one second. At least I'm still doing the audio recording. The Earth was warming up at the end of the last ice age. It was just getting warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer for like 20, 30,000 years. And then all of a sudden, it just, global temperatures just plummeted. The Earth just dove back into the ice age full bore. And then for about 1,200 years, it kind of just hung there, and then it started to warm up again. And at the end of that period, I mean, no one really knew what caused that period, and no one knew what caused us to come out of it, because, you know, I mean, theoretically, if you have an ice age, it should be self-perpetuating, because once the ice freezes and the temperatures drop and all that stuff, it shouldn't change. But 11,500 years ago or so, 9,500 BC, which is right at the same time that Plato's Atlantis story took place, which was 9,000 years before the time of Solon, who was Plato's ancestor that got the Atlantis story on a trip to Egypt. During that time, they're now finding all kinds of impact proxies and evidence that there was some sort of a meteor or a comet impact on the northwestern section of the United States. And there was a tremendous amount of flooding and stuff that happened there. I mean, you really just got to look into the work of like Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. There's some others, but that's just a great place to start for that. But a lot of the legends and stuff that you get out of the Native Americans at that time tell perfect stories about how that happened. And they all match up very well with the Popol Vuh from the Mayans and Navajo legends, which I've read and talked to Navajo elders about, Hopi Indians, even some of the Shawnee Indians and the Chippewa Indians, Apache Indians, Caddo Indians. We have these all over my area. And I've talked to these people for a lot of years of my life, and never put the dots together until the last 5 or 6 years, that there's a really interesting story about the flood myths and stuff like that. But I think there was another flood like 3,500 years ago, like 1,500 BC. And I think that there are a lot of the myths that we hear about floods weren't necessarily just the Atlantis myth. And I think that the Atlantis myth may not necessarily be one of the farthest ones back. So, Friend of Man says that Tamil mythology shines a light on the inundation of Lemuria. Okay, real quick, I've got 50 seconds left on the Instagram live feed. I'm still on the audio feed. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up, guys. And then we're gonna pick up with this here soon. But if I get into this Tamil mythology thing, first of all, go subscribe on the YouTube channel. Please go subscribe on the YouTube channel. We get more people there. We're going to be in much better shape. And you can subscribe by going to the link in my bio here on Instagram. Friend of Man, go follow him if you're into ancient civilizations. He does as deep and thorough research as anybody I know. And he talks about Tamil mythology shining a light on the inundation of Lemuria. Can't wait to hear more about that, Shay. Thank you very much. And that's all I got, man. I appreciate you guys so much. We hit 10,000 followers today, and I'm so stoked about that. Keep it going. Appreciate you guys. May the light be upon you. May peace be within you. May you be a sun on the paths of all men. Love you guys. Have a great weekend.
Can I